Millions of pages of the Epstein files were released, and they are traumatic, I think, especially if you're a survivor. But there's also details in this release that connects directly with how we got here specifically. And what I mean by that is the online radicalization of young men, the manosphere, conspiracy culture, and also MAGA. And it starts with World of Warcraft and 4chan. I was a community manager during Gamergate, and at the time I thought that harassment was horrible, but I didn't think that it would then become the blueprint to radicalizing young men. Files show that Jeffrey Epstein had an interest in 4chan and then later contacted the creator of 4chan, Chris Poole. If you don't know internet history, this is where in the early 2000s where a lot of the misogyny and harassment culture was cultivated. They often mobilized and organized targeted attacks against SJWs or feminists online. Epstein then contacted Chris Poole to organize a meeting. And directly after that meeting, Chris created r/Poll, which if you don't know is r/politically incorrect, which was it was like a cesspool of conspiracy and misogyny and just think of the most alt-right content. That's where it lived. Okay, so we talked about 4chan. Now how does this connect to World of Warcraft and Gamergate? Well, Steve Bannon, Trump's ex-chief strategist, used to be the CEO of a WoW gold farming company. You know, before his political career, he was one of those online places where you would pay money to buy gold in World of Warcraft. But what Bannon did was he also studied the men in those spaces. And he described them as literally ruthless white males with monster power. And then he sold how to mobilize those men to Trump's campaign during his first administration. Epstein files show Epstein coaching Bannon in real time during a pro-Trump media push in 2018. They were cultivating an army of young, isolated, angry men that were ready to be pointed at their targets. And their targets were women, specifically women online and women in the game industry. Bannon understood something pretty crucial. You don't need to give these young men facts. You just need to give them a common enemy based off of a pre-existing framework of misogyny, and then be able to dress up the rape and death threats they would send women with. It's just about ethics in game journalism. In Gamergate, the enemy were SJWs, feminists, and wokeness. While misogyny has always existed, they made the pipeline. They made the manosphere. And a lot of the misogynistic rhetoric we hear now online on this app was first created, formed, perfected during Gamergate. They trained and weaponized these young men so that they can be pointed at any target that they needed. Mobilize a crowd, give them a villain, and call it a crusade so that you don't get caught.